was your brother or someone that was...
My brother-in-law.
Brother-in-law he hadn't converted, right?
No. But he was experiencing some of the same issues that I was wrestling with. We had never talked about that. But he was very involved as well. But he was wrestling with some of the same things. And so I'm sharing with him, hey, I'm just troubled with how we do things, and it's really frustrating, and I'll never forget this. He says, I know exactly what you're saying, and that is why I am prayerfully considering a 2,000-year-old church comprised of men who are smarter, more prayerful than I, and they do not agree to disagree. And as soon as he said that, Catholic Church. But he said, it just, like a light bulb did go off or on. And I thought, okay, yeah, that would be nice. And he pulls out a catechism. And he hands me a catechism. He says, start reading this and tell me what you think. And this is the direction I'm going. And you tell me where you think I'm going wrong. And I'm thinking, you're journeying towards the Catholic Church, you want me to tell you where you think you're going wrong. Okay? Like, let's just open this up. Let's just open the catechism up to any page, and I'll show you where you're going wrong. It's kind of how I'm thinking. But Marcus, I took the catechism home, and I started reading it. And it literally blew my mind. I could not believe what I was reading. Because the church was taking the faith and connecting it in a way and taking it far deeper than I could even imagine and laying it out so beautifully. I couldn't believe it. So here I'm reading the catechism every night, and my wife would be falling asleep, and I'm elbowing her, do you realize that Catholics don't worship Mary? Or here's why they have purgatory. Like, I'm explaining these things and getting drawn in to the faith, realizing it wasn't what I had always been taught. But what really grabbed me was how the church casted a vision for what humanity's purpose, why God created us, what life was supposed to be like, what has gone wrong, and how God wants to fix it. And it was answering all the questions that I was looking for as it pertained to, now that I'm a Christian, what do I do? How does God work in my life? And it was actually kind of scary at first, but at the same time, it was very exciting. So I started studying church history. I start reading, studying the Council of Trent. And I'm looking at it from an argument standpoint. I'm like, wow, I'd be arguing with the Catholics here. I'd be arguing against Protestantism. And then for the very first time, I realize I'm a 21st century American Christian. My formation has come from late 20th century American theologians. This thing called Christianity, it's been around a long time. So what did we believe 600 years ago, 1,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago? And when I realized that my version of Christianity, when I understood that 60% of the world is Catholic, 60% of Christians are Catholic, 10% are Eastern Orthodox, and then you've got some mainline Protestant groups. But when you start talking non-denominational American Christianity, it's a tiny little piece of the overall picture. So it's very humbling. And I started studying church history, and I could not believe that God had used the Roman Catholic Church to put together the Bible. That freaked me out.
Do you remember what your assumption had been before that, about where it came from?
I know. I thought, what was I thinking? Did I think like a canonized copy fell out of Jesus' pocket when he's ascending into heaven? I'm like, what did I think? I had never thought about it. And you start realizing we don't have any originals. We have copies of copies of copies that the church pieced together, protected, translated, safeguarded. I'm thinking, how in the world did God use the Roman Catholic Church to do this? And you start realizing that's all the world knew. When it came to Christianity, for almost 1,100 years, all the world knew was Roman Catholicism. So I think I'm a pretty logical guy, and I'm thinking that it's not reasonable to me that God would send his son who had launched this ministry, and then it would take him until the mid-16th century to really bring the fullness of the truth through one of these Protestant reformers who I didn't even know who to pick. Do I pick Luther, Calvin, Zwingli, Wesley, Knox, Joseph Smith? You have all of these guys saying, God's using me to restore truth, to bring truth to the world. So in the back of my mind, I knew I was going to become Catholic, but honestly, I fought it a little bit. I was trying to think, how do I do both? How do I take Catholic theology and remain Protestant? And I had an offer to become a pastor. I had a church that was started by a couple of friends, great guys, love God, love people, know the scriptures well, and they say, we want you to come on board and be a pastor. Well, that was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be in ministry. I wanted to bring to people the experience that I've had, this encounter that I've had with Christ. I wanted to help other people.
Just let me make clear that our audience understands you have no seminary background.
No, not at this point, no.
So at this point, you're just a good Bible-believing, faithful follower of Jesus that's struggling with how do I know what's true, and some guys are almost talking you.
Well, that's what they did. They didn't have any background either.
Yeah, so just go out and start this church.
Yeah, that's all you need is to know you know the truth, and the ability to get up and talk to people, and you should be a pastor. And so but I struggled. I thought I really felt a calling into ministry, but obviously I can't be in ministry in the Catholic world. I'm not going to be a priest. I didn't understand the Catholic culture of ministry. So I thought, oh man, if I become Catholic, I'm going to have to give up this vision and this calling that I feel. And it was difficult. It was I struggled with it very briefly, but I knew I had to say no because I knew where I was headed. I knew there was no way I was not going to become Catholic. It was just a matter of time. And my wife was getting that sense. And she was struggling with that because her and I both come from similar backgrounds where Catholicism is not a valid option. It's not a Christian option. And I said, let's just go to Mass. Let's go check it out. And my brother-in-law had invited us, and we went. I'll never forget.
This is her brother, then?
It is her brother. So her and her sister-in-law are saying, our husbands are going through a fad. It's just a phase. It's just an intellectual journey of studying church history, but they're going to come to their senses, right? You know, that's what they would say. But we went to Mass, and Marcus, God just graced my wife and me to really enter into what was going on. We wept. I cried like a baby during the Mass. And I remember being freaked out, though, when they said, this Mass is being offered for the repose of the soul of so-and-so. And I thought, oh, gosh, so what am I doing? Where am I? But I truly entered into the Mass, and God graced me, and I knew it was, I had to go back. And I started going to daily Mass, and obviously not receiving, but I continued to study. And now I'm like dialoguing with all my Protestant friends. I'm trying to help them understand the church, and I'm becoming an apologist without realizing it. I'm like arguing for the church. And one day after Mass, I approached a priest. His name's Father Charlie Garide. And I introduced myself, and I kind of explained the journey I was on. I said, do you have any time to meet with me? I'll never forget this. He said, Chris, that is all I have time for. He said, call the office, schedule a time for us to meet.